If you've been around since the beginning of my channel or just came in recently and you've been watching my other Warhammer content, then you know that I absolutely love Space Marines, and I absolutely love all things that have to do with the Warhammer universe. And let me tell you that Saber Interactive, even with their spotty past with World War Z, managed to mostly knock this title out of the park. Now, I say mostly because there are a couple issues that I have that I'll talk about later in the video. But for an on par, this game is great. The campaign is fabulous. You can play it in co-op, you can play it single player. It's absolutely amazing. Same can be said with Operations. It's co-op based. It's supposed to be played with, you and 2 other people. And you just go through and do missions that collide and coincide along with the main story that is happening in the story-based portion of the game. And then, of course, if you're a huge Gears of War fan or anybody who loves the old-school shooter aspects, where you don't have to be, dolphin diving at an Omnitrix 360 while using your own little haxy doodle programming that's not detectable by anti-cheat, then you're going to absolutely love the PvP. Because it is old-school Gears of War to the point that it's like Gears of War 2 old school, and I absolutely adore it. It is so good. But I hate PvP because you also have teammates that just sit at spawn because they want the achievements. That's probably something that Saber Interactive will fix eventually. I'm sure enough people will eventually bitch about it for it to happen. But let's talk about the main stuff, the actual important stuff. Let's start with the campaign. So the campaign follows Titus. This is about 200 years after his first game with Space Marines. And now he's a part of the Death Watch. He has to pay penitence for what he did in the first game. Completely understandable if you actually follow the lore. And right when he was about to perish, taking down a Carnifex by himself, he gets saved. Although he got his ass beat. A little surprising, but He goes through the Rubicon surgery and he gets put into the Ultramarines thanks to the chaplain. Now, Titus gets put as leader of his little band of merry men, which is going to be Gadriel and Chiron. And both of these people are kind of cardboard. I'm not going to lie. Gadriel kind of looks like the pretty boy who just happened to be selected to be a Space Marine. And Chiron actually looks like he would fuck your shit up, but he doesn't really talk much, which is kind of a good thing, because I feel like if he talked too much, he would lose that cool factor. He kind of reminds me of like a berserker if we were like Vikings kind of style. Absolutely insane, but he gets the job done kind of person. Now, I would recommend playing this game at whatever difficulty you want. It doesn't really matter. I did all of the campaign on Angel of Death. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of artificial difficulty spikes that happen within this game. And I'm going to list the 3 biggest ones that I had. So the first one is the rats, or whatever they are. They look like rats, they swarm like rats. It reminds me of A Plague's Tale, where they just kind of form into little pylons and rush at you and you have to use a pyroblaster. We got stuck there for a good 15-20 minutes just because of how much is happening, where one of your people has to basically kill the rats and everybody else has to take down all the enemies, including a Zoranthrope, which if you have a bunch of close range players, you're not going to have a good time and you're going to fucking suffer. The next one is the chains. This one is infamous because it is extremely buggy. And it's not buggy for the reasons that you think it's buggy. It's not that the chains go down too fast or that the enemies take too many bullets, so it makes it really difficult to progress. No. The boxes are suggestions. Now, you might think that sounds a little crazy. What do you mean by that? Well, if you actually go and play through on Angel of Death difficulty, or any difficulty when you get to this barge point, the enemies can shoot through the boxes because the boxes are set up in such a lazy design that they don't block bullets, but they block characters from going through the boxes. And basically, I can only describe it as is like a sandwich. So you have the bottom layer and the top layer, and that's your bread. That's where the barriers are actually at. And then in the middle, the jelly portion is actually just jelly, right? So there's nothing actually there. There's no peanut butter. So you're absolutely just getting shredded by the bullets that are going through these boxes. Absolutely annoying, and I hope Saber Interactive fixes it, because that is the only portion of the game that I did not complete on Angel of Death, and I had to bump down to Veteran because it was absolutely impossible. And I don't think anybody else has actually completed it on Angel of Death as well in that portion, and there's probably a lot of other people who are complaining about it just as much as I am. And then the other part that we had to turn down was when there's 3 Carnifexes that you have to fight. Absolutely soul-crushing difficulty. Now, the game makes you believe that a lot of the time you're going to be fighting Tyranids. And it's kind of true. So, when you first start off, you're fighting a bunch of Tyranids, you're trying to, knock down this escalation and everything. And then eventually you just get kind of sent off because you find a Chaos Space Marine ship that landed in the middle of the Tyranids. And now you're like, okay, well, now you got to go to the other planet in the solar system and go fight the Chaos Insurgency kind of people with Imra. It was a very jarring experience because I expected this to just be a straight-up horde shooter, very similar to World War Z. And it was kind of led to be believed that way through a lot of the trailers that it was just Tyranids that we were facing. So it was kind of a welcomed, but also slightly unwelcomed from my perspective, inclusion. Now, if they had it set up where they had 2 separate story missions where, like, we took care of the Tyranids and then, like, afterwards we went to go fight the Chaos Insurgency, absolutely perfect. Would have loved it that way. But instead, it jettisons me around a little bit. And it's a little jarring, but that's a minor nitpick, and it's not going to affect the rating at all. The boss battles in this game are also absolutely insane, and they're fun no matter how many times you run through the content. I can tell you right now, there's probably videos out about it, but I'm also going to be making one about the fastest experience run that you could do for operations, so you can get your character to 25, you can get all the cosmetics, so that way you can just kind of, bling your Space Marine out, make it into whatever faction you want, or, become a Skittles Marine or whatever the hell they're called, where you're just an abomination in nature. And at the end of it, you fight a Hive Tyrant every single time. But every single time, it is fun, it is enjoyable, it's not boring, and it's not annoying. It's very engaging, and it's the gameplay loop like that came from Darktide that actually is making me sink my teeth into this game way harder than I probably should. Now, Operations is the specifically made for your co-op campaign kind of running to run us alongside the actual story. And all the operations are fun. There's not a bad operations in there. There are some that are a little bullshit, like 4. 4 is a little bullshit. I think we can all agree on that one. But it's still fun, nevertheless. Even as I'm struggling, I'm having fun. Whether I'm playing with randoms or I'm playing with friends. And that is the biggest factor into any video game anymore, is it fun? And it is addictively fun. It is ridiculously fun. And I can't emphasize enough how fun it is that I'm going to keep just saying fun to emphasize it. I absolutely love it. I can't wait for them to add more classes, because by the time this video comes out, I'll probably have 4 to maybe 5 of those classes at 25 and making build guides for them, so that you guys will actually be able to complete them on Ruthless to either get your achievement or to just, farm out the cosmetics, farm out credits, so that way you can get all the other cosmetics, because there's a cap of 999 credits, which is something I'm a little disappointed in, because eventually what happens is when you run out of stuff to buy, you're going to be capped, and then when new stuff comes out, you're going to burn through all those credits, and you're not going to make them all back. So if Saber Interactive removes that credit limit, I'll be a little more happy with it. Now, PvP. PvP has been great right now. I will say right now, I have not run into any toxic people on PvP. I have run into people who don't actually do the content, which I guess could be toxic. Or I have people who don't actually do the objectives, which is subjective to who you are as a person on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I've been having a blast in it no matter which of the 3 that I'm playing, whether it's Team Deathmatch, King of the Hill, or just simply capture the flag and hold the zones like Dominion style. It's so good. Now, let's talk about a few of the bad things. So, like I've stated before, in the campaign and even in operations sometimes, there's this weird influx of artificial difficulty that comes out. And it's probably just due to the AI. or just the way that they set up the enemies to come out in the story, that makes it a little bit unbearable. Some of the enemies in story mode are actually so spongy that you might be sitting there killing them for a lot longer than you would actually in operations, which is wildly insane to me, by the way, that I am suffering way more in the campaign than I am in operations, where I have almost a guaranteed 2 other people, whereas in the story I could just play it by myself. Another issue that I have is the AI. Now, I'm somebody who would prefer to play alone if I can. Sometimes I can't because my friends drag me along with them, and that's perfectly fine. You know, if you have friends that want to drag you through stuff, sometimes you have to go through it with them. But the AI in this game is actually atrocious. Sometimes you are so hoarded down, whether it's in operations or in story mode, that you want to just run through a little portion of the area so those enemies despawn and you can just get a new fresh stack. Well, sometimes the AI decides that they want to have their own Space Marine TikTok where they're just, you know, singing I'm Still Standing song. And they will literally sit there fighting every enemy while you're just, like, trying to push to the point of no return, so that way you have that segmented cut to get rid of those enemies and move forward. They'll just keep going. And you'll sometimes, like, be there for 5 minutes just waiting for them to finally push through and get to you. So if they could make the AI a little bit better, or at least give us an ability that tells us to command the AI to do something, like come to us, and make it a little bit better. But as of right now, the AI in Space Marines is definitely worse than their World War Z game. And if they could just bump that up a little bit and make it so much better. Another issue that I have is they don't have every weapon from the story mode into the operations, which is kind of shitty. Because you already have the weapons in the game, just toss them over. And I understand some classes don't get all the weapons that they need, but they're just kind of eh. Like, just having the option is better than not having the option. But that also leads to another complaint that's kind of contradictory when it comes to operations. In operations, you will get a different variety selection of weapons. And to be honest, for most classes, there's only one right choice. For example, Assault. I know this is everybody's controversial take. They say Assault's terrible, but I actually like Assault. But I also play Assault as a parry dodge build, where I'm using a lot of gun strikes and a lot of melee. And I'm using a chainsword. See, I wanted to use the Thunderhammer because I thought it'd be stronger, but the Thunderhammer somehow is weaker than a chainsword, which doesn't make sense to me. I figured something that is basically infused with, don't quote me on this because I'm not super into the lore, but basically something that is infused with enough Psyker aura to just do shockwaves and stuff on hits would hit harder than something that is just a giant human-sized chainsaw. The fist is pretty good. It's not the greatest. It's like the most mediocre of the ones that I've listed for Assault, but it's still better than the Thunderhammer by far. And then there's not a lot of build diversity within the skill trees, which isn't a bad thing. It reminds me a lot of how Darktide initially was before they did their extensive skill tree overhaul, and then still proceeded to make basically one build is only good kind of thing. I digress. But definitely some classes you have to take these skills and you have to take this weapon or you're not going to pass stuff. And sadly, Assault is one of them, but Assault is still extremely good with its Gunstrike build. When it comes to this game, though, by far, I have to say this game is easily an 8.5. Now, they need to tone some stuff up, they need to tone some stuff down, but once they fix that stuff, this game can easily be a 10 out of 10, especially looking at their roadmap, and if they keep with that roadmap, and they keep pushing beyond just that initial roadmap, it'll be a phenomenal game that could actually do better than Helldivers 2. Because Helldivers 2 was another game that I was really excited for that a lot of people are comparing to this one. And then they kept nerfing stuff in a PvE game. Now, I understand if they start nerfing stuff in PvP for Space Marines 2, but I know that's not their prerogative. So, you know, bulwarks are going to run rampant for a long, long, long time in PvP. So once I get the achievements, I'm dipping out of PvP until it's fixed. But overall, absolutely phenomenal game. And I highly recommend it to you if you have not played it. Or if you're looking for your refugee from Helldivers 2. I highly recommend this game. If you love just game loops, if you love doing similar stuff over and over, this is definitely the game for you. If not, you will find yourself very bored of this game within the first 20 hours. After you've done a little bit of the PvP, after you've done the story, and after you've done all the operations on whatever difficulty, it's going to be a wrap for you. Thank you guys for listening to my little review and my little rant. I hope you guys take care, stay awesome. I hope you guys like and sub if you actually like the video, and I hope you sub if you're looking for more Warhammer Space Marines 2 content, because this review is just the beginning. This is just the iceberg, just like it was with Darktide. I'm going to have build videos out. I'm going to do all the crazy stuff that you could think of, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye, guys.